Which one's on that? It's no, that's the other child. What's the green? No, we're not trying. Oh, shoot. Yeah, we got away on that.
Yes, that the NBC board is voting on it. That's what you're saying.
Oh, okay. Yeah, okay. Okay, that's right. I'm sorry. No problem.
You're good.
You're the. Those are pretty cool. She has a hearing. She should be right. No. Sure. It's slow.
By my phone, it's 10.
Yeah, by my.
Yes, sir. Okay.
Okay, it's 10 o'clock. I'd like to call the meeting to order, please. If anybody is on Zoom and would like to make comments during the meeting, if you would use the raise your hand function on Zoom so that we can turn your camera on, and your camera must be turned on, and please announce your name and address for the record, please. You need to be visible to the presentation on the internet or on Zoom. Thank you. This time I'd like to introduce our new members, new directors for NBC board, J. Ross Lacey and Garrett Nonley. Thank you guys for being here. Appreciate it very much. And you have been sworn in, so now you can actually say it. Let's get it done, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. Item number 2, motion approving the minutes of the January 6, 2025 meeting of the Midland Development Corporation. Are there any public comments? Any discussion from the board? I'll call for a motion to approve the minutes. So moved. Second. A motion is second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, item number 3, a presentation of Texas Tech Health Science Center on the Child and Adolescent Psychiatric Fellowship Program in Midland. Dr. Timothy Benton, Dr. Rahadrada, I'm going to butcher this, Vadagarayan and Jessica Sanigo will provide an update on Texas Tech University Health Science Center program in Midland, its outcome and its future. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning. I moved here from a couple of weeks ago, maybe a couple of months ago, like 3 months ago, from Midland, and to join as the chairman of the Department of Psychiatry. And there's one of the reasons that I moved here is I saw the phenomenal growth of the Department of Psychiatry and their future plans, which is very impressive. So I'm not talking about those what we achieved in the last couple of years, and then what we are planning to do. So next please. So the department has grown significantly in the last 6 years, and the credit the Midland Development Corporation has been a partner to our growth, and that is responsible for much of what we did in the last couple of years, because we got an 8-year grant, $8.4 million grant. We get $40 million every year. So the department used this grant to grow as a regional hub for mental health treatment and to provide community one-stop shop for psychiatric care. Now we have an ambitious plan. Now we want to go from a regional hub to a national hub. And we look forward to having the opportunity to continue our partnership work with the MCD in our better effort. Next, please. So, before I talk about our growth plan, let me talk what we did in the last 6 years since we got MCD funding in 2018. So we run 3 outpatient clinics, 2 in Midland, and 1 in Pulaski. And then we also do psychiatric consult service to the area hospitals, the 2 major hospitals. And we help run acute inpatient unit in Oceans Behavior Health, both in Midland and Hamilton. We also run inpatient services in the Big Spring State Hospital and provide emergency psychiatric service to local hospitals. We offer real-time psychiatric consultation to local physicians. That is something that we have been doing for a long time, and that has been very helpful. Non-psychiatric conditions, if they have a patient with a psychiatric problem, so we provide them real time at what the patient is for treatment. Next is. And we are the only facility in the region to offer the most advanced psychiatric treatment modalities like ECT, TMS. TMS came in psychiatric practice about 15, 20 years ago. And then we also provide esketamine, and that was first approved in 2019, 6 years ago. And only last week, I mean, that was approved by FDA as a monotherapy or single drug treatment for depression. And we provide multiple services to Midland and Andrews County Juvenile Justice System and Active County Detention Center. Next, please. Our outpatient clinic has been very popular. And that's the chart shows the number of patients that we've seen in different years. So you see in the last 6 years, since 2018, we've seen over 85,000 patients. And the annual number increased over 80% during this period. So in that, next please. And that exceeded our expectations. When we started in 2018, when NCD has expected that we should see around 9,500 patients a year, but we are shy of that number in year one. But then after that, even though we like it in COVID time, but we always exceeded the benchmark of 9,500, 600, that number. And now our trajectory is going upwards. So this our outpatient clinic is very popular in the area. Next, please. In the patients, that's another impressive data that we have. That these 85,000 patients, they came from 126 counties located both in and out of Texas. Next, please. So if you look at this map, so these are the dots where our patients came from. So it's almost all over Texas, and including the Houston area, Austin area, and San Antonio area, and of course Dallas. But then it also goes to South Dakota and Florida. So the patients are coming from a wide region to our outpatient clinic. Next, please. Now, this is the other service that we offer in consult service, just like the outpatient services. There was a dip in the COVID time, but then it's going up, and we have served over 7,000 patients since 2018, and there's an increase of over 400% in the last 6 years. We saw about 400 patients in 2018. Now it has gone up to 1,600 now. So that has been very popular also. Next, please. So primarily because of the clinical services that we offer to the community, Midland County is no more designated as a mental health shortage area. So that's a big achievement that we got, because this county has been designated as a mental health shortage area for a long time. And they took off the list, I think, 4 or 5 years ago, because of when we started expanding. But then there's a downside to that also, because now we don't have access to the federal dollars designated to shortage areas. So then we have to find other sources of funding. So, but that's a big achievement that we have. Next, please. So, and we are like any good citizen, we are involved in the community also. We want to stay on the highway tower of our clinics and the department. So we go out in community, and we have a partnership with over a dozen local institutions. And we have a partnership with Boys and Girls Club in Midland Children's Education Center. Offer local patients innovation, real-time access to mental health experts. And we have school-based clinics and provide mental health education through bi-weekly Zoom meetings. And these meetings are very popular. This is a 1-hour meeting that we have every other week. And that is open to everybody, in general public. And usually about 100 people can attend those meetings every other week. And those who are in attendance, there are some of them are healthcare workers, and some of them are just patients, and some of them in general public. They want to be curious about the mental illness. And it is popular not only in this area, but also there are people from Corpus Christi. They are the regular They are in attendance almost all our sessions. That's something very popular. We are also having social media presence. Every week we post a brief description of a mental health condition on YouTube and Facebook. And these postings are also very popular. And actually, they are used for teaching in several institutions, including Midland College. So we have been contributing to the community as like any good citizen would. Next, please. So we run support groups for a number of psychiatric conditions. Those support groups are important to keep those patients mentally healthy. We are involved in training Midland Health Department employees, and we were promoting mental health awareness through newspapers and TV. So we are all involved in the community activities a lot. Next, and because we are part of the Texas Tech University, and educational research is an important part of our mission. So, but we are training future psychiatrists. So we have a psychiatry residency training program that we started in 2016. The first batch graduated in 2020. There are 16 residents in that program. We also have a fellowship program in child and adolescent psychiatry, where we have 4 fellows. And we train medical students, course and physician assistants from the Midland College. And in partnership with the UTPB, we train licensed professional counselors and clinical psychologists. And that training is important so that we can have our mental health workers in the area. So we train family medicine residents. That is also a very important part of our responsibilities, because nationwide there is a shortage of psychiatrists. So many psychiatric patients who need psychiatric care, they don't see, they are not able to see a psychiatrist. It has been estimated that only 10% of the patients who need psychiatric care, they get to see a psychiatrist. But most of those patients, they see their family practitioners. So we train those family practitioners how to treat the psychiatric conditions, because they see more psychiatric patients than we do, the psychiatrists do. So, and we are active in research on mental health issues also. In 2024 alone, we produced 37 scientific papers and presented several posters in national and international conferences. So in the last 6 years, we have significantly expanded clinical services, community outreach programs, teaching and research. And this pace of expansion encouraged us to plan even bigger. Now we want to go from a regional hub to a national hub. And to achieve this goal, we are collaborating with the communities in the behavioral health center. Next, please. And as you probably know, we are working closely with them to develop a state-of-the-art 200-bed psychiatric hospital in Midland, which is scheduled to open in April of 2026. Next, please. So to staff this hospital, we have started the process of hiring at least 21 additional psychiatrists in the next 2 years. And this facility will house inpatient and outpatient facilities under the same roof, obviously. And when we designed the program, what program we're going to offer in that hospital, so we kept in mind what is not available, what is needed in this area. So for example, there is no single inpatient unit for children here, children under 12. So that is our first priority. So they want to be in the hospital, so we're going to have this children unit. The same thing about pediatrics population. Then intensive outpatient program for addiction. Addiction is a big problem in the area, and there's no intensive outpatient program in the area. The same thing about long-term rehabilitation of addiction. And partial hospital program for behavioral stabilization. So these programs are not offered by any of the institutions here in this area. So those programs are already when you go to this hospital in the 2026. In the partnership with the PBPSC with the department, which is over 10,000 patients in inpatient units, and over 50,000 in outpatient units every year. That will be a big chunk on the number of patients that we see currently. Next, please. So we provide, of course, in that the new facility will provide advanced somatic treatment facilities like ECT, TMS, and scheduling treatment that we are providing right now. So we have moved that facility there. And we have a psychiatric emergency department. There is no psychiatric emergency department again between Dallas and the hospital. This is the first psychiatric emergency department. This is a need for that service here. And we have recently established collaboration with the VA Medical Center, the Scenic Mountain Medical Center in Bixby to train our residents and also to manage their inpatient unit, inpatient operation unit. And the VA government is their addiction services. So, but we are still collaborating with other behavioral treatment facilities in the region. We are still trying to develop within this big work in progress, please. So, and community engagement, we continue the current community outreach programs that we are doing right now. And then continue weekly podcast and weekly, bi-weekly podcast and weekly social media postings to increase awareness on mental health illness in the population. We are plan to organize a monthly town hall meetings to discuss mental health issues. I did that in Buffalo, New York. We were very good to the so we used to have town hall meetings every other week. And then a lot of patients would talk about their problems, and then we talk about their solutions, how we can change them. So we plan to do that, and then train a team of mental health workers to visit patients in crisis. We have all these services. But some of this mental health crisis patients with mental illness, if they have crisis, they are not able to get out of their houses. So we wanted to have change social workers. And we also have experience of doing that in the past. Then we train law enforcement officers to de-escalation techniques and educate anyone who thinks of training into patients. That is something that is sorely needed in many jurisdictions. When I was in San Antonio, there one of our patients was shot dead by the police. Not because he was doing it, but because he did not have cognitive ability to understand the instructions. The police did not understand that. We said the patient is not obeying their orders. So we were trying to teach them that how to handle these patients. We don't interpret their actions as if they are not obeying orders, because they are not cognitively processing your instructions. And this is what happens in many cases. In many cases, those patients they are even killed by the law enforcement officers. That is a very important situation. So teaching law enforcement officers the de-escalation technique will not only restore public order, but sometimes it create a problem the patient with mental illness. So there has to be a way they should law enforcement officers, they should understand how to public comment so they don't create a problem. So that's a very important area of what we don't have any mechanism that is next please. So one of effort that we are doing there is the expansion of access to mental health resources, particularly in rural area. There is no access because there are no psychiatrists in rural hospitals. And so what we are trying to do, or what we plan to do rather, is to approach the hospitals that do not have psychiatrists, and talk to them that okay, we have psychiatrists and we are able to offer services to either to daily psychiatric services, and if you need a patient to be admitted, then you will transfer the patient or the patient. So we will go actively go out in the community and get the patients. Then advocacy of patients with mental illness. One of the problems, particularly in the rural area, is stigma associated with mental illness. And because of that stigma, patients do not want to see a psychiatrist. And then they see psychiatrists only when they is very advanced stage. So we want to educate the people about so that mental illness is not stigmatized. And also, and there are quite a number of national bodies that work to educate and support family members and general public about mental illness and try to dispel the stigma attached to mental illnesses. One of those organizations is NAMI, National Alliance of Mental Illness. And I have worked with them in the past actually, so they have organized the weekly meetings, so they talk about different issues. And so we're gonna involve them also to educate the community about mental illness. And stigma. Emphasize the importance of early diagnosis and treatment of mental illnesses through biological podcasts and social media postings every day. So that's very important, for the patients that they should approach the psychiatrist or healthcare workers at the beginning of their condition rather than coming at a very advanced stage. Next, please. And for education and training, so we plan to expand psychiatry residency training program in the next 2 years from a current contingent of 16 to 40 residents. So we take 4 residents every year. So this year we have started that process. This year we are going to take 6 or 8 residents in July of 2025. So we started that process. In 2 years, we're gonna take 10 residents every year, so that we can put up 40 residents in the program. And we have applied for to start a Google chat residency training program. And that Google chat will be 8 additional residents. And we also plan to expand the child adolescent fellowship program from 4 to 8 fellows. And then start new fellowship programs in addiction, geriatric psychiatry, clinical psychiatry, and forensic psychiatry. Once we move to university. And then we are also planning to develop a combined family medicine psychiatry residency training program. So that coming practitioners, they have a better understanding of what psychiatry is and how it completed. Next please. So, we continue to collaborate with the UTPP and School of Health Professionals in Midland to train the care workers. And we offer adjunct faculty fund. We started this process. We are offering the adjunct positions to the faculty at Harvard and other places. And so we have to take advantage of their expertise. So once we offer them adjunct appointment, then we don't have to pay in salary. But then they will visit once in a while here and talk with the residents and faculty and general public. And so we just pay for their the travel in the hotel accommodation. So, and we are still in the process of extending this funding to the next person. Next, please. And then the research is an important part. If you want to become a national hub, then it is important that we should have a quality research in the area. So in order to do that, then we plan to hire clinician scientists to develop research programs focused on local mental health issues. And then we organize an annual international conference on psychiatry. That conference is not being organized anywhere in the world, it's needed here. And then we organize a multi-grand round lectures delivered by international scholars and experts in published in journal will psychiatry. Because these efforts not only will help us understand the mental issues in the area better, but will also give us a name information at the international level. So that is important for us to do to start those programs next semester. So if we go the way we planned it, then that will benefit the city of New York significantly because the proposed plan to make Midland one of the national hubs for treatment of community illness. It will bring patients from all over the country. As I should have shown earlier, that we are already getting patients from many states. Now, once we become a national hub, then we're going to get a lot more patients from different parts of the country. And these traveling patients and their relatives and friends will benefit local hotels, restaurants, and other businesses in the hospitality and healthcare industry. And then the increased trafficking area will benefit malls, theaters, tourist attraction taxis, gas stations, etc. And what we expect is about 100,000 additional visitors come to the city. Because we will be treating 60,000 patients, and some of the patients will stay here for a week or maybe 2 weeks here. In particular, the children will be in the hospital, the parents will be staying in the hotel for a week or 10 days. And they will spend money. So if on every day spend your $100, then that will bring to the city about $10 million a year. So that's very conservative estimate. I think we are still going to exceed $10 million. Next, please. So we are getting funding from different organizations, but what we are not able to cover is selling support for 10 fellows in two position service, creating social infrastructure, and hiring social workers to reach out to patients in crisis, transportation for the outreach program, organizing their programs in their communities on psychiatry, furnishing the department with new location, and then for these PVPSC. And we have estimated the cost associated with each of those items next please. And that's again very conservative estimate next please. So that comes to about $5 million per year. So for those unmet needs that we have. Next please. Really appreciate the support that we received from NBC, and we hope to continue the collaboration in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Doc.
Doctor, if you don't mind, I ask, you notice that you have Midland County, Ector County, and Anchorage County listed as three counties of beneficiaries. How much does Ector County and Anchorage County contribute to this program?
Not too much, because the state has been certain fixed rate for which they reimburse, and that rate is much below the market rate, so.
And listen, I don't disagree with this
Yeah.
program. I was on council, I voted for it. I think mental health is, if not the top three, the number one public health issue in this area. My point is that we continue, we're seeing multiple requests coming through right now. And where the NDC is being acted to be 100% of the funder, when other counties and cities are receiving the same benefit that we are. I feel just that since we have such limited funds, all communities should be joining in on these costs.
I completely agree with you.
We'd like to help lead that
Yeah,
initiative with you, but it can't be cumbersome with the Midland Development Corporation to continue to keep funding it.
No, I completely agree with you. That's not going to benefit on the Midland. Counties.
Yeah, and I love what you're doing. It's very.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you. Is there any public comment?
I noticed that, you mentioned you have fellows and residents. How many actually, and then you're actively hiring, how many of those actually stay in the permanent basis?
So we have started that process now. So we have basically, I think, 8 or 10 residents in there. And one is already signed up. And we are talking with the 4 other residents here. But one of the problems is why people are not, we are not able to attract too many people. Is because we do not have the right facility. So once we have a new home, then that will attract a lot more people from the different parts of the office. And that we are seeing now actually, because once this is already overseeing the new facility, then we are getting back to what we have in the past. And with these plans, we are going to have this plan, so we will increase our residency by 24 new residents and about 20 new fellows. So that makes 45, and then 20 faculty. So that makes 65. So we're gonna have 65 additional psychiatrists in the area.
And that's the reason I'm so curious about that is my husband's a surgeon. And so then I care about once we get them here for training, to try to keep.
Any further public comment? Any discussion from the board? Any further discussion from the board?
Somebody requests a little money.
A question about working with law enforcement. Are y'all not doing that now? That's the future plan?
No, there is no any systematic program. Yeah. So we want to make a very systematic program so that everybody who gets into law enforcement, they should have to compulsory training with us for a day or two or something like that. That is what we did in San Antonio.
Thank you, Doc. Hey, thank you for your presentation. Appreciate it very much. Okay, item number 4, at this time, presentation from Interflight Global on aerospace development in Midland. Oscar Garcia, president of Interflight Global, will provide an update to the board on aerospace recruitment and development in Midland.
Good morning. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, yes.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Lord Sams, Executive Director Sarah Harris, and the NDC board. I would like to say thank you to all of you for the confidence and support for Interfly Global Corporation in the last 6 years. And I also would like to say hello to Jay Ross and Garrett Donnelly, who have through the years been of support and encouragement for Interfly Global's activities in Midland, developing the aerospace and defense industrial progress. I would like to give you an update on what we have done in the last 5 years as we come into our 6th year. And the presentation you will see is broken down into 4 segments. The first one is an overview of the space economy, the aerospace and defense clusters that support it. The second segment will show you the strategy and the results that we have accomplished for the Midland Air and Spaceport and the city of Midland to date. And the third segment will show our what I call our go forward and upwards plan for 2025 towards the end of the decade, and the priorities that we think are going to keep consolidating and growing the industry in Midland. And the last segment will be an overview of possible funding and industrial support that both the federal and state governments can offer to the all the developments and all the progress that we are making. One quick question, Mr. Chairman, how much time do I have so I can time the slides?
Just let's go. I'll let you carry on too long. We'll let you know. Just feel free to go.
Okay, I'll aim in 10 or 15 minutes. The slides have a lot of information. I just point out that the highlights and the slides are yours and public in the package. So I'll move through some of them fairly quickly and focus on the ones that I think are important for the near-term development. So next slide, please. So like I said, we are going to take a look at the year 2024 and the progress that we expect to make in 2025, as well as the forecasts towards the end of the decades. What you see on the slide are 3 of the companies that we have in Midland, and we have as tenant or strategic partners: Starfighter Aerospace, Firehawk, and MITRE. Next slide, please. So let me give you a quick overview of the space economy. I just returned from probably one of the most important space weeks in the calendar year last week in Orlando, SpaceCom, where we reviewed the numbers that you see here, which are produced by the McKinsey and Company, Space Foundation, IFG, and several other firms. But the space economy is poised to push $2 trillion by 2035. And this number is one of the most conservative. Bank of America and some other investment banks are putting the economy at over $2 trillion by 2040. And what is interesting on the right side of the slide is that the compounded annual growth rate is pushing 10%, which is double the global GDP growth. So aerospace and defense and the space industry that they support is growing at double the speed of all other industries. Next slide. And please, if anybody has any question, feel free to interrupt me and ask as we move forward. What I find very interesting on this slide, you can see is on the highlighted segments, microgravity R&D and space construction, space logistics, and asteroid and moon mining are a big bulk of the overall industry. And those 3 segments, as you will see later, we are growing in Midland with actual tenants that are not only growing with us, but are bringing other suppliers. So on the next slide, I'd like to show you what that can mean for Midland, for the Permian Basin with Midland as a hub. So most estimates would say that out of the total space economy, about 1.2 trillion of it will come to the United States. And doing some aerospace comparables, we could say that the Texas impact, the impact of the economy could be up to $250 billion. Or 20% of the US, especially with the Texas space commission and other state level developments. So if we drill down one level below that, and assuming 20% of that comes to Texas, we could look at roughly a $50 billion impact per year available to us in Texas, out of which a portion of that could come to Midland. What is important on the next slide, please, is that the industrial complex tips at what we call tier 1 suppliers, and the two largest ones are satellites and launch vehicles, and we have both in Midland. We have managed to bring two of those top segments of the economy to Midland. I will show you who they are later, but what is more important is that those OEMs tier 1 are supported by 4 other tiers that compose 90% of the industry. So bringing in one tier 1 company to Midland will allow us to attract, retain, and grow their supporting supply chain. Next slide. So moving on to the second segment, the strategy and why Midland could be a new center of gravity in America for the aerospace and defense and the space industries. And one attribute is that we are exactly in the middle of the nation. We are equidistant, more or less, to both aerospace and defense space coasts in Florida and in California. And as I'll explain later, the coasts are starting to become traffic jammed, according to the Wall Street Journal, in the sense that their launch and flight activities are going to probably be backlogged by the end of the decade. We are in a position to balance the coasts, if you will, and act as a national fulcrum. Next slide. And we are not alone. The density of spaceports around us is pushing 10 spaceports, and we have 4 of the launch companies that have managed to launch and re-entry vehicles in the nation. So we are probably becoming what could be the densest launch and re-entry corridor in America. Some of those companies are in the news constantly, and after they test on the coasts, they need more space and airspace to test, and that's where we come into the picture. Next slide. So that's a little bit our position geographically in the center, with 13 spaceports around us. And once we look at possible connectivity between spaceports, we have found 27 possible spaceport to spaceport routes from Midland, which is starting to position us as a hub in the center of the spaceport community. On the next slide, we can see that some of those routes, starting from, say, 250 miles to Spaceport America to 7,600 miles to Guam, all radiate from our hub position. Next slide. So the airspace corridor development has been going on for almost 4 years now. It started with Kimley Horn and now moving on to MITRE. We are ready to start testing and flying the corridors between Midland and Spaceport America. The Global Spaceport Alliance has been a strategic partner to develop a white paper that informs the regulatory agencies like the FAA, as well as Congress, when needed, into the development of the airspace corridors, which is a key attribute of what we have to offer in Midland. Next slide. So just to go back in memory a little bit, and Jay Ross, you'll probably remember it, Leo Labs coming in 2014, thanks to you and others back then. And then on the next slide, we also have our satellite manufacturer, AST, that 5 years into Midland, in September of this year, reached $10 billion of market capitalization, and now hovers between 6 and 8 billion. And what is interesting about AST is that they have also built a solar panel factory nearby, and it's not unthinkable that their manufacturing activities in Midland keep progressing and growing, involving satellites and even possible other activities that I cannot mention now because this is a public forum, but that look very promising. Next slide. So looking at back to 2024, we acquired 3 new tenants to Midland. Starfighter Space chose Midland and declared it its headquarters for global operations. The Space Force Association made Midland its Texas headquarters. And Castilian Aerospace from California moved to Midland and is already testing motors. And last week in the news, they announced a fundraise of $100 million. And they're looking at expanding their test facilities, flying facilities, and manufacturing. And hopefully, Midland could be part of that. Next slide. So a little bit quickly, the last 5 years, we've added 1 to 2 companies a year. And again, the attributes we have of land available, airspace available, and particularly the speed to business, the business friendliness that Midland is offering to these companies, starting to radiate to the rest of the nation. And we have a very strong pipeline of companies coming in and knocking on our doors pretty much on a quarterly basis. Next slide. So on the strategic front, these are the 5 verticals or the 5 areas that we have proven successful. You see the companies that support each one of them. I'll go over them very quickly. The first one on the left is satellites and low Earth orbit, which is probably half of the $2 trillion space economy. And we have what we call a unicorn, a company that grew over $1 billion in market cap with us and some of their subsidiaries. The second segment is launch and re-entry, and this is a very important segment. As I said, both the DoD and the commercial operators are realizing that the costs are getting saturated, and we need to offer an alternative for both horizontal and vertical. Assured vertical access to space is becoming a challenge for our national security, and we have all the conditions, land and airspace, to answer that demand. High-speed flight and corridors with Starfighter Space headquarters. Starfighter Space operates supersonic, hypersonic, and air launch vehicles. So we have that market segment well represented. The next one is in situ resource utilization and energy. A company, Astroport from San Antonio, is moving forward with a simulated moon yard where they're going to experiment for NASA and other agencies into the use of lunar resources for supporting the space economy, the lunar economy, and cislunar economy are growth areas as well. And then we have advanced and deep technologies. We've had a couple of companies come and go, but our strategic partner, MITRE and Space Nation, are probably a growth story. I believe the Space Nation is on the agenda later, and that area is a growth area as well. And last but not least, defense, munitions, and weapons. Castilian is a good example. Firehawk also is part of that story. Firehawk just announced $60 million fundraise as well in the hypersonic munitions and weapons, which is a new vertical that appeared in 2024. So next slide. So those thumbs up you see are the results of 2024. Our familiarization trips, our activities have yielded companies moving to Midland. We expect many more this year, and particularly the end of this decade is positioning itself as a very, very strong mergers and acquisitions and private equity investment environment, as it was released in the news last week at Spacecom. So we expect more going forward. Next slide. So what's next? Next slide, please. One area of interest is we exist now solidly and firmly in the national aerospace and defense economy. In any event or trade show or venue up to Congress and even the White House with some of the space policy directives, they have included Midland and the Permian Basin as a center of gravity for aerospace and defense, and that's something to be proud of. And I also am aware that locally, the Permian Basin and in Midland, there is an outreach campaign that is being kicked off as we speak, which is very, very good support for more companies coming in. Next slide. So this is a little bit the panorama at the spaceport and the business park. Phase 1, what we call phase 1, the 50 acres, with the settlement of the moon yard from Astroport, starfighters, aerospace, and the possible growth of AST. We probably have completed that phase 1, and then phase 2, which is 300 acres, is on our sites. We're firmly focused on bringing in manufacturing companies, to bringing in assembly and final assembly of vehicles and components as our strategic goal for the next 5 years towards the end of the decade. And on the last point, point number 4, vertical capability is essential for us to continue the growth and to answer the demand from the DoD and the commercial space industry of adding capacity to the coasts. And the land available west of Midland is second to none in the nation. Next slide. So next slide, please, Gabby. Thank you. This shows you a little bit the panorama. These are all companies that we are in contact with, and we in some ways lead through our think tank, the High Speed Flight Group. We meet yearly at the High Speed Workshop in Midland, and last year was the strongest attendance and the strongest names that came to Midland looking for that airspace, the airspace corridors and the launch and re-entry capabilities. This ecosystem is only growing, and we have direct reach to it. Next slide. So that's an area for growth and to respond to a demand signal that is growing literally monthly, at least quarterly, is vertical launch capacity. The coasts are being saturated, and the coast real estate is becoming more and more restrictive, both in terms of price and in terms of environmental concerns. So inland capability is now the congressional talk often, as well as the Department of Defense. And we have not too far, an hour and a half southwest of Midland, probably what could be the most capable land and airspace combination for vertical launch site. There are dozens of companies that have already told us, tell us more as you develop that project. Those are some of the companies that exist, and some of them we are talking to. Next slide. So back to our workshop, we are already booking the 2025 edition, and assured reliable access to space is the key discussion, vertically and horizontally. Next slide. This is a little bit more information. The American Institute of Aeronautics and Astronautics joined us strategically, and they are also focusing on Midland as the center of gravity for the Institute, and there's very public conversations already in place. Next slide. A little bit of the panorama we had last year with a full room and all the participants that you can see on the logo map. Next slide. So in summary, these are some of the areas of interest that we expect to grow: low Earth orbit economy, high-speed aerospace. We can be the flight central of the nation, human high-speed and space flight, research and training, hypersonic propulsion, research and development, and high-speed aircraft and spacecraft. And with Starfighter Space this year, we'll start actually flying and launching from Midland. And last but not least, in situ resources utilization and space energy. Those are two areas of interest for the DoD as well as the commercial operators that we are very, very well positioned to cater to. Next slide. So here are our strategic priorities for 2025. The first one is start flying, use the corridors, enable them. MITRE Corporation is ready. They are seeking federal funding for their research combined with our flight campaigns. Firehawk is launching very, very frequently, and other companies like Castilian, and in fact, a new company coming to see us next week, they are looking at launching and flying from Midland. Priority number 2 is vertical launch facility development and capability exploration, both into White Sands Missile Range and the Gulf of Mexico. Priority number 3 is consolidate the U.S. Space Force presence in Midland using their headquarters, association headquarters, and leverage all the assets we have so the Space Force can have assured, resilient access to space from Midland or nearby at the vertical launch sites. Number 4, develop the space resources and energy verticals with companies that we have and other companies we are talking to. Next slide. Number 5, capture and attract tenants for new hangars and an operator for the altitude chambers and with the MDC having economic development agreements that are beneficial. And I believe on the agenda today, there might be a development here. Number 6, keep leveraging our strategic partnerships, which have a direct impact in funding we can get from both state and federal. We are strengthening our relationship with MITRE, and we've been chosen as the strategic airspace center for America for MITRE, the American Institute of Aeronautics and Astronautics, as well as NASA, the FAA, DoD, and all the other agencies. One item of interest could be to obtain tax-free industrial development bonds to get some of the major infrastructure projects funded. And last, as I mentioned, enhance the support from the Midland local community leaders and mainstream public. As I can tell you, we are already well known nationally and also internationally, as we had presence from many international visitors at the HSAT this year. So just the last couple of slides, I'd like to go about a little bit of our funding vistas. Next slide, and possibilities. So if you ask me, and if you ask the industry, Texas is now the envy of every other state when it comes to space funding. Even Space Florida, with all its legacy, is looking at what the Texas Space Commission is delivering, and there is no doubt that Texas is positioning itself as a possible number 1 in the space industry, and that's where the vertical launch access, Texan vertical launch capability for the whole state it starts becoming very, very important, not to rely on Florida or California, but have that capability. The Commercial Space Flight Federation and the Global Spaceport Alliance are asking Congress for different funding sources, like the STEAM grant, 60 million that has been applied for a couple of years. There is a reauthorization language in the FAA bill for next generation funding that could benefit our airspace corridors. And then MITRE and KBR are collaborating and getting funding from the federal research budget for us. And last but not least, one competitive advantage we have in Midland is that some of the companies coming in have received private investment. That's a huge competitive advantage against other site selection scenarios. When there is public support, economic development support, but there is also private appetite for private equity or venture capital, that makes us very, very competitive. So next slide. I think that we are coming to the end of the presentation. Next slide, Gabby. So that's it. That's a quick briefing. That's 5 years in review and 5 years forecast. Thank you very much. We will be honored and privileged to keep working with you as our pipeline is incredibly robust.
Thank you, Oscar. Do we have any public comment? Any discussion from the board?
We got a lot of good stuff going on, and there's a lot of opportunity for a lot of buildings.
My only questions, but comment, we don't have the funds for this. It's like the NBC board needs to prioritize and all the city council, what we do, what to accomplish, what we don't. Because from what I can see, a large commitment already this fiscal year towards the spaceport. We have multiple needs within our community and cannot 100% focus on the spaceport. So my advice would be we need to prioritize which a couple of these we want to go after. But looking at land in Reeves County, it's not the best thing.
Any further discussion? Thank you, Oliver.
Thank you.
Item number 5, resolution authorizing the execution of a consultant service agreement with Interflight Global Corporation in the amount not to exceed $195,500 for services related to the procurement of new tenants for facilities located at the Spaceport Business Park and authorizing payment for said agreement. In 2024, Interflight Global supported familiarity tours with 20 different aerospace companies and high-speed aerospace transportation workshop with over 75 aerospace industry participants, including AIAA, Boeing, NASA, and others. Contract for 2024 continues work with Aerospace Prospects Development, hosting the 2025 high-speed aerospace transportation workshop and industry advocacy. The 2025 contract price is an increase of 10% from the 2024 contract. Is there any public comment? Any discussion from the board?
I just want to clarify because your notes say 195, 500, and I think the agreement we have is 192, 500.
I agree with that.
That's like,
Good work.
okay.
Good point, good catch. So, is, Sarah, is that 192 is 10% increase?
That is correct, yes.
Okay, this is a typo. Thank you, Brad. Sure. Any other further comments from the board? With that, I'll, take a motion for approval.
Make a motion to approve.
Motion.
I'll second.
A motion and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Item number 6. Motion authorizing the chairman of Midland Development Corporation to negotiate and execute a non-binding letter of intent with the Wynick Family Trust to lease certain real property located in Reeves County, Texas. Provides for the NDC board chair to negotiate a non-binding LOI to secure the land for potential orbital vertical launch site. Any lease agreement or binding document will come to the board for final approval. Is there any public comment? Any discussion from the board?
What are you offering? Like, you haven't, so show the board what you might be offering, what might be negotiated.
There's nothing, this is complete non-binding, letter of intent for us to do due diligence and see what the potential, whether it's a good place for orbital launch and suborbital launch, and see possibly what we would have to offer, what it would take to get it leased, et cetera, et cetera. So there's no commitment at all.
Do we have an idea of what the total cost for the Midland taxpayer would be for a vertical launch facility before we start going down this road? Because the reason I say that is we did this about 6 to 8 years ago, and we saw that the cost was so high that we couldn't shoulder it. And so my only question is, before we go down this road, one, do we have support from the Midland City Council to go down this direction, which I don't know if we do or not, because we haven't consulted them. And 2, are the funds there to even do this while we continue to meet our commitments to the Midland taxpayer? I'm not against space, and y'all all know that I served on the space board and I was part of it for 6 years. My whole concern is we're dealing with a limited amount of funds at the NBC, unfortunately. Maybe, we revenue 14 million, 16 and a half is what we bring in. We made a commitment previous years that 30% of our revenue would go towards infrastructure. I don't feel that the board is honoring that this year. There's some other areas, especially with $16 million that has been spent towards the spaceport this year. In my opinion, if we've spent $16 million towards the spaceport, which is 1 year worth of revenue, we've done our commitment towards the spaceport this year. And we need to reevaluate, we need to talk to city council on what the appetite is to continue to keep pursuing this path, because I understand there's still funds tied up into it, but all it takes is the signature of one man in the White House to change funds. And we've seen that here in the last 2 weeks. And so my concern is before we go down this route, Do we have support to do it? And do we have the funds designated to do it? Because from what I can tell, we don't. And before we get down this whole path of vertical launch facilities and looking at potentially spending Midland taxpayer money in a county located outside of our jurisdiction, I want to make sure that what we are doing was in the best interest in our whole vision of the NDC and not just solely focusing on one interest. So that's my focus.
Appreciate your comments. There's a lot of, comments in that and a lot of questions in that and a lot of different levels. But first off, I would have to say that I think the city council does overall support the potential for a vertical launch site as we've been working on another associated area for 5 years.
There's a new city council today.
And I understand that. And I certainly think that they need to be talked to, made aware of what we're trying to do. They're certainly aware of the other sites that we've been looking at, particularly as it pertains to Firehawk site. And all those are appreciated. As far as an orbital site, does the city have the money? Absolutely not. That's going to have to take partnerships with private entities, with federal government, state government, and others to make that happen. There's not any that has that kind of money. But it's something that I think is extremely important to the Space Board. A lot of industry partners are coming to Midland because of the possibility. Just like a lot of industry partners like Starfighters and others came, and Custodian came because our potential for high-speed flight in a high-speed corridor that attracted a lot.
We spent $16 million on it.
What's that?
We spent $16 million on attracting them here. So while our area might be attractive, giving them a $14 million free hangar is also attractive as well too.
Absolutely. But there's other things happening with that in conjunction with that. And, we've seen some success like AST, which is a $6 billion company currently at the airport. There's things happening, other things of success. I think the other is going to bring manufacturing jobs and other jobs that go along with it.
That's fine. I'm a no to it, just on the record. I'm one, I don't like non-binding, otherwise I think the work is. And I don't think that the Midland City Council or the NDC or citizens of Midland should be investing money in this county while we still have issues here.
Is there any value looking at opportunities elsewhere to be better positioned to execute in a place you feel better about?
There's nowhere in Midland County. We looked at it 6 years ago. And the problem with it is 1,600 feet around it is vaporization zone that actually catastrophic problems. I understand where we're going right now, but I don't think the cost has really been talked about and what this potential impact to the taxpayer could be. That's my only concern. If I've been a part of this space park for 10 years out there now. And one thing I've seen is we continue to recruit them. We've done a really good job of taking care of the situation we have out there right now. If we get in this vertical launch business, which the NBC has no business being, okay, we might be able to find a partner or find a company that can handle it. But getting in the vertical launch business, I do not think that we have adequately thought this through to see what the true cost would be. And if there's no way the NBC can make up the city's portion, anyway, with what we have within the next 4 years of commitments that we've prior boards have approved the city council, we're committed to a $50 million downtown. And so with that hinders anything we really want to do for the next couple of years. So that's what we might do.
I would have suggested that, although we need to be mindful of that, have assets that are shovel ready such as this. It's going to take some homework, and I think this is somewhat of an authorization for the NBC to explore this project. As you said, we don't understand the cost, we don't understand much of this. Somewhere in here is an authorization just to do the exploration so we can build a shovel ready project. Because that's the only way we're going to go and get other industry partners, other federal dollars, other state dollars, is to have a plan in hand, which we don't right now. We have pipe dreams right now. And so I wonder if, and these are things that companies here are asking for. So to have a project ready to go, to show to the state, to the feds, I think is what we're trying to get to. That's what I read into this.
And I get that. Mind you, 90% of our economy is oil and gas, if not more. And so I've got oil companies asking me why roads are falling apart. We're going to help with those as well too. So you can look at both sides of it with companies in space asking us to.
But we're a very small drop in the bucket for infrastructure projects like that. That's its own.
100%.
And having a secondary industry that can go to bat for us. So guys trucking equipment back and forth between a vertical launch or other manufacturing goes a long way in Austin to support trying to get road dollars out here.
I think we need to see what the state wants to do, because without an immense support from the state of Texas, none of this would happen either. If it's not listed as an emergency item, we should, I'm just saying. Within
No, I
the,
understand, but the flip side is Texas A&M got $200 million for their facilities at Ellington, that they're gonna build in Ellington.
in Houston.
I understand, but that project was that's been on their radar and had been costed and everything out. It's been there for a number of years in their growth. And the state's gonna fund it, but I mean, it doesn't get funded without that project ready to go.
I just don't think it should be the MDC as the source of funding source. While,
I agree with,
while
for
we
the facility itself, yes.
But even while we explore due diligence, it's expensive. We know that.
Any further discussion? Okay, I'll call for a motion for approval. Take one to approve. Motion, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Motion and second, all in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed?
Hey,
Motion carries. Thank you. Item 7, presentation of the January 2025 monthly expenses and economic development activity report for the Midland Development Corporation Executive Director and staff. Sarah, thanks.
Good morning, board. I wanted to show you our sales tax collection for each month so far this fiscal year. As board member Director Lacy pointed out, we are running above budget. So our budgeted sales tax collection for this fiscal year is $14 million. However, with the actual collections that have been received thus far, we are 20% above budget, which puts the MDC on track for $16.8 million collected this fiscal year. However, that is projecting another 8 months into the future. Looking at your income statement, specifically in your board packet, I want to draw your attention to line 53909, prior year committed incentives. This is a disbursement of $1.859 million to the city of Midland for the infrastructure construction project at State Highway 158 in Briarwood. This commitment was made last fiscal year, summer 2024, to help with the construction of this crucial intersection. This is half of the amount that the MDC committed. The other half will be dispersed in 1 calendar year. I'd also like to draw your attention to line item 57000, capital land purchases. This is the amount utilized to purchase 2200 South Lamesa in Midland. That transaction closed last week, so that land is in the MDC's possession. It has been added to our liability schedule of insurance, and that project is ready to move forward with board guidance. Those are the comments I have on the financial statements. If anyone has any questions, I'm happy to answer. In terms of staffing updates, Sammy has left us to become a full-time mother. So I've been discussing some of her roles and responsibilities with Gabby, and we are transitioning the business visitation portion of her duties to Gabby's role. So Gabby will continue with marketing and the business visitation. And the administrative and coordination part of Gabby's role will be put under another position that we will be opening the hiring for within the next couple of days.
Good.
Awesome. Well, for now, I will present on the marketing activities in January. So starting with social media, we started the year with a combined following of 14,000 followers. That also is including Twitter, which we don't really mess with just given our local audience here and our goals. But over on Facebook, we are sitting at 5,693 followers. We had over 58,000 impressions. So that's how many people saw our content this month. A lot of that still had to do with that Costco reel that we had in December with our groundbreaking event. So that continues to get a lot of engagement, along with a visit to a new coffee shop with the Made in Midland series. The top post that we saw this month on Facebook with impressions was the Higher Orbits event post that's happening, I think, next week. And then a post about the farmers market every weekend, and then a post to our outgoing board members. Over on LinkedIn, we grew to 2,512 followers with 6,000 impressions. Similar over here with the top post with impressions was our post for our outgoing board members, and then some new data we received that Midland was ranked the 5th best city, and then some photos from the state of oil and gas that we attended this month as well. Our reach has grown outside of Midland and Texas, so we're in Midland, Houston, Dallas, Austin, Lubbock, and then out to Denver, San Antonio, New York, DC, and El Paso. On Instagram, we're sitting at 3,884 followers with 8,000 impressions. We've had a 75% increase in engagement over there as well with our top post to our outgoing board members. The data post on Midland being ranked the 5th best city in the state of oil and gas pictures. Here's just a little preview of what that looked like. And then some other activities that we also did this month, our newsletter. So I had let everyone know that we were experimenting with HubSpot's, recommended list of engaged subscribers. And so we unchecked that in January and we saw how that paid off. So, it's really interesting to see that technology and who's engaging in our newsletter every month. So that just went out this morning for February. So I'll compare those next month. And if you're not already subscribed, you can use the QR code. Other activities also included the cost of living collection participation, the annual report, preparations for that. We also issued a press release with Midland ISD about some students that participated in the AIAA SciTech conference in January. Those 2 students came from Midland and participated in Higher Orbits Go for Launch event that MDC helps put on with Chevron and MISD. So that was really great that they had that opportunity right here from Midland. AST also received quite a bit of local media coverage this month as well, thanks to the MRT, and I believe First Alert also had a piece out there as well. Over at the Spaceport on social media, Facebook grew to 155 followers, Instagram at 133, and then LinkedIn continues to take the cake at over 300. Founders Blend, same kind of thing. Facebook's at 547 followers, Instagram's at 905 followers, and LinkedIn is at 160. And just some information on Founders Blend this month. We pushed this to next week, just with some different events going on this week. So we'll be at UTPB Seed Building on the 12th at 7:30. We'll hear from the Insurance Hunter, which is a local insurance business, and then Desert Dreams Gymnastics. They are a gymnastics gym here in South Midland. And we'll have coffee from UTPB and we'll have breakfast also there. So we'd love to see you out at the seat. And that is all I have.
Okay, any public comment? Any questions from the board, discussion from the board? Thank you, Gavin. Thank you, sir. Okay, at this time, it is, according to my watch, it is 13 minutes after 11. And the board now will retire into executive session. Pursuant to Texas Government Code 55.101, the Board of Directors will hold an executive session, which is closed to the public to discuss the following matters as permitted under the following Texas Government Code sections. Section 551.072, deliberation regarding real property. Discuss the purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real property. Section 551.074, personal matter. Personnel matter. Discuss the employment, evaluation, and duties of the executive director. Section 551.087, deliberations regarding the economic development negotiations. Discuss business prospects that the Midland Development Corporation seeks to have, locate, stay, or expand in or near the city of Midland, Texas, and discuss possible incentives and discuss contract compliance on part of business.